What's up, guys? Gons here for the Face Like the Sun YouTube channel. So, a lot of crazy things happening. One of the things is Stephen Hawking, in a lecture he did at Harvard just recently, suggested that black holes could be portals to other universes. According to the Harvard Gazette, Hawkins is quoted, "It is said that fact is sometimes stranger than fiction, and nowhere is that more true than in the case of black holes. Black holes are stranger than anything dreamed up by science fiction writers, but they are clearly matters of science fact." He continued, quote, "Black holes contain a lot of information that is hidden from the outside world. If the amount of hidden information inside a black hole depends on the size of the hole, one would expect, on general principles, that a black hole would have a temperature and would glow like a piece of hot metal. But that was impossible because, as everyone knew, nothing could get out of a black hole, or so it was thought." He continues, quote, "What happens to all the particles that fell into the black hole? They can't just emerge when the black hole disappears. The particles that come out of a black hole seem to be completely random and bear no relation to what fell in. It appears that the information about what fell in is lost apart from the total amount of mass and the amount of rotation. For more than 200 years, we have believed in the science of determinism. That is, the law of science determined the evolution of the universe. If information were lost in black holes, we wouldn't be able to predict the future because the black hole could emit any collection of particles. It might seem that it wouldn't matter very much if we couldn't predict what comes out of black holes. There aren't any black holes near us, but it's a matter of principle. If determinism, the predictability of the universe, breaks down in black holes, it could break down in other situations. Even worse, if determinism breaks down, we can't be sure of our past history either. The history books and our memories could just be illusions. It is the past that tells us who we are. Without it, we lose our identity." So, very interesting stuff from Professor Hawking. And really, this is interesting because he is currently trying to understand what happens to this information that goes into black holes by studying this concept called super translations to explain the mechanism by which information is returned from a black hole and encoded on the hole's event horizon. You know, it really is starting to sound like the world that at least these scientists are allegedly investigating is pretty digital. In other words, our physical construct, our creation itself, has some sort of underlying fabric or information logarithm that really makes it work. It's kind of fascinating to consider. And I know people have different opinions of Hawking and who he really is and why he's saying the things he's saying. So on one hand, to suggest that black holes are simply portals to other universes is quite startling. It's a little bit of headline rhetoric, but I still find it fascinating. On the other hand, it is pretty startling considering all the propaganda that we've been tracing on portals and just extra-dimensional activity in general. And it seems like as we progress in modern science and technology, we really are coming to the end of understanding or scientifically being able to theorize the limits of the fabric of creation, the material world, so to speak. And really you have to start applying the non-physical realities to help explain things. And in fact, science itself has really been doing that for a while with their theories about multiple dimensions and the many worlds hypothesis, things like that. So it's nothing new. But the other side of things, and maybe the darker side of things with all this, is the possibility that all of this is being set up to really have certain entities or a race of beings, so to speak, come through something like a black hole, a portal, and appear and, you know, solve sort of the extraterrestrial question, but also the interdimensional and the spiritual aspects, and really present themselves as the gods that created us. And that's something that I think is being set up as part of the Great Deception, if it does in fact play out in that manner. And it ties into the UFO phenomenon and everything else, obviously. But the other thing that's noteworthy about Hawking is he recently was part of the initiation of something called Starshot, or interstellar space exploration. And basically they want to send a light-propelled robotic spacecraft to the nearby star Alpha Centauri and get there in just 20 years. And basically these things called the Starshot nanocraft would fly through space in what they call our interstellar sailboat. And they claim that it could capture images of possible planets and other scientific data and send them back home in a beam of light. And if the mission succeeds, that they'll tell us about ourselves as it will about Alpha Centauri. And you can read all about it in the link that I'll leave here. But it's very fascinating to consider because not only is Hawking a part of this, but there was a donation of $100 million by a billionaire investor, Yuri Milner. And also the other person involved in this is Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook. And what's Mark Zuckerberg doing? He's getting everybody on these virtual platforms, and he believes that the virtual realities is the next step in social media. So when we start talking about these digital virtual realities, and Hawking now talking about black holes or portals to other worlds, are you starting to see the confluence, the convergence of information that is coming out, and what is being presented, what is being prepared for the masses? And it's some of the same things that I've been saying in several videos in the last few weeks here, but it seems to make sense, especially when all I'm doing here is reporting to you stories that are out there. These are not things that I'm making up. These are stories that are published and are public. So all I'm doing is presenting it and connecting the dots and filtering it through a different worldview that you may not have considered otherwise, which is that biblical worldview, the Christian worldview that, turned so many of you guys off that may have found this channel based on your interest in science and things like that. But there is a deep coherence when you start looking at the biblical perspective. And that's part of the reason why I enjoyed the work of The Unseen Realm and Dr. Heiser, and what he shows from the proper context of these ancient texts is that there is an unseen realm that is fabricated throughout, and even entities that interact with humanity between these worlds in so many ways. And, it's just a fascinating study when you really get into it. But think about where we are here, and think about where things will be in just a few years. And as a watchman, I just see this wave, this technological revolution coming, and I'm just going to keep warning folks about it, not in a fearsome way, not to scare you, because we don't operate in a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. This is what the Bible tells us that God has given us. So operate in that with all this stuff. Don't be afraid of it. There's no need to be afraid of it. And that's partly why we're able to address these topics and these issues and, really dig into the deep end, so to speak, because we carry that light of Christ within us and it shines through. So some things to consider here being reported, to the public. It's just another story. It's just another thing. But actually, I think it's part of a conditioning process to prepare us for something big. So let me know what you guys think about these articles and what Stephen Hawking is saying and doing and what he represents. I know some of you guys think he's some sort of controlled voice box, literally. And, there may be some truth to that, a spokesperson, a public persona to deliver certain propaganda. But I know from what I've heard and read anyway, that he has had the gospel preached to him. So we ought to be praying for the guy that he comes to see the truth, or that if he does see the truth, to be bold enough to really proclaim it. Have an awesome day. God bless.